All right. I had forgotten to record, so it'll be in the Facebook, but I'm recording these trainings for other purposes later on down the line. So, all right. So, a couple of housekeeping things. Number one, I am drawing two names today for the prize of my favorite read aloud book, but you do have to stay on to the end of the training. So, there's going to be a couple of different parts of this. We're going to do the training, and then we're going to do some Q&A at the end. So be taking notes and jotting down what questions you have. Feel free to drop them in the chat as they come up, and I will do my best to answer them when it seems like an appropriate time. But I will try to get to as many questions as I can. We will do the drawing after the training. You do not have to stay on for Q&A in order to be eligible for the drawing, but you do have to be on the live call, and you do have to have commented in the comment feed to be eligible to win a prize. Okay, so I'm giving away 2 copies today of my favorite read aloud, and I'll tell you what that is in just a little while. And we're going to get started with session 1. So session 1, day 1, this is called your why and your prep, your basic prep. Now, these are pieces that most people do not do well before they get started doing their homeschooling. And I'm going to encourage you, a lot of times we resist doing these steps before we get started, and I encourage you not to skip this. If you don't do anything else, this is the day to do. Because if you don't get everything else done before you start school, whatever you decide, these pieces will hold you through doing school, even if you're not ready, okay? Because the honest truth is, you can get all your curriculum and you can figure out everything that you're going to do, and you can know all the answers, and you can make all the copies, and you can have everything all like Pinterest worthy cute. And at the end of the day, you're still not going to feel ready. Because we haven't done it this year. Even if you're a seasoned homeschooler, you haven't done it this year, and everybody's in a new space. Everybody's in a new grade. So I encourage you to give some real thought to this today, okay? So let's go over, before we do this, I want to address, a lot of you don't know who I am. So let me just introduce myself before we get started. My name is Mary Aldrich. I live in Powder Springs, Georgia, and I have 7 children, and my husband, Brandon. We moved here a couple of years ago from New Hampshire, where we worked full-time at a Bible school, a Bible ministry. My husband was an accountant there, and we also did a lot of training with students on that campus. We did mentoring, and we wore a lot of other hats. As most small schools and convention centers go, it's not unusual for when you're on staff there to do a little bit of everything. And so we did a lot of that. Yeah, so I have 7 kids. My oldest is 19. My youngest is 9. There are no twins. I have 5 boys and 2 girls. I've homeschooled for 14 years. And then last year, the Lord called us to put all of our kids in public school. I do not doubt that for a second. I know that that was a very clear indication of what we were supposed to do. And it was quite the interesting transition. We had a good time learning how to do school last year. But then this year, with everything happening, it became very obvious that we were supposed to go back to homeschooling. So you may be a longtime homeschooler. You may just have decided that you're considering homeschool. As a veteran homeschooler of 14 years who just made the decision for a lot of, primarily around COVID, I just want to encourage you, if that's your reason why you're deciding to homeschool, that's fine. It's fine, all right? That can be the reason. And we're going to dig into a little bit more of the why here. And you'll find that probably COVID isn't the only reason that you're doing it, but it's okay if it was the straw that broke the camel's back. That's okay. All right. So We've got lots of other people popping on. I'm just nice to see you. Welcome. And we are just getting started. I hope you've got a pen and some paper so that you can take lots of notes. We're going to get started. And I've told you who I am and my kids. I'll talk a little bit more about them through the week and some of my experiences, but I want you to know that I have kind of a smattering of experience on both sides of the spectrum here for public school and homeschool. Also, I was homeschooled for a few years. And so I have the perspective, frankly, of being the rebellious teenager that was being homeschooled. I was not a person that really responded well to that. So if you are a parent with teenagers that are very uninterested in homeschooling or just school in general, I have a little bit of a perspective of what that looks like too. As well as I have two kids that have graduated, and so they are, we've been through I don't see the value in doing this kind of thing. So that's a little bit about who I am. In regular life, I also am a life coach, and I run a program for moms all year long called Super Mom School. And we have a great time coaching through all kinds of life scenarios. So that's my kind of business side, but it helps me live well and do my life well. So let's get into what we're really going to talk about today. The first thing we're going to talk about is if you have not made a decision about what you're doing, then that's going to need to be the first thing that we talk about. Want to figure out, are you homeschooling or are you not? If you are in this group and you haven't really figured that out, I want to give you a couple of questions to help you nail that down, okay? And these questions are going to be useful if you've already made the decision or not, but they will be especially helpful if you have not made the decision yet, okay? So the other side of that I just want to lovingly reflect to you is notice the group you signed up for. Notice the thing that resonated enough that you're willing to give at minimum 5 hours of your time this week to do. And consider, is that an indication of where your heart really is? Okay. And that can be true for deciding. It can also be true for deciding about what school is going to look like, homeschooling, all kinds of things. So, and different curriculums and what's it going to look like in your house and your schedule and stuff like that. Consider the things that are resonating with you. And if it resonates, I would put that in a category of, hey, this might be a really good idea. Even if it feels big and scary, even if it feels like I don't know how to pay for that, even if it feels like I don't know if I'm going to be capable of doing that, even if you get all these unknown kind of nervousness, if something resonates with you, stick it over in this might be the thing that sounds like the thing for me to do. Okay. So that's my first consideration here. The second thing is we want to get really clear why we're doing this. Why? Why do we want to get really clear? Well, because whatever school option you're choosing, whatever curriculum you're choosing, however you choose to set up your house, there's going to come a time this year where you absolutely hate what you're doing. You'll get there. You'll get sick of getting up early, or you'll get sick of fighting with some child over a difficult subject, or you'll just be sad that you haven't had any me time lately, or you have a complete mutiny in your house, whatever that is. Those are the types of things that it's real life, right? So we're going to get clear on the why. So the way to do that is just to ask the simple question of, why have I decided to homeschool? Or why am I thinking about homeschooling? If you haven't decided already, why am I deciding to homeschool? Write down the first thing that comes up. So for me, it was like, well, COVID, because I'm really clear that I'm not gonna do all of the unknown stuff. I want my kids. And do you see how I said COVID? And then I started talking about other things, right? So we're gonna walk down a why path that is kind of, it goes deeper and deeper and deeper. Okay. So why? Because COVID. Okay. So I get that COVID is the reason, but what is it about COVID that makes me want to homeschool? Well, because what I'm feeling is that everything out in the world right now feels very unsettled and is creating anxiety for everyone. And I am longing to help my children find a place of stability. And I know that whatever they decide in school, however they choose to do the school stuff, or the teachers are giving it everything they've got, whatever they're doing is not going to create an atmosphere of stability for my children. Okay, so my second tier down is because because stability for my children is a priority to me. So that would be the second tier down on the why. Okay, so stability for my children is a priority to me. Why? And we ask again and we go deeper. Why is stability for my children something important? Well, because my children learn better in an environment where they aren't in survival mode. I know enough about the brain that if they're flipping out about things, or if they don't feel safe, or if they don't feel like they have their needs met, or they're living in some sort of anxiety, that their mind cannot physically retain information well. And so I know that the amount of learning that they're actually going to get is going to be minimal when that is the case in the environment. And so I long to have them have a good academic experience and to be able to grow. I want to create that for them. So stability, academics. I also, okay, what else about stability? Well, because I know that I want to show my kids that they don't have to live from a place of fear, that they can live from a place of confidence and trust in the Lord. But that's not being communicated out there. However, as best people are doing, it's not being communicated that you don't have to fear what's going on, that you can trust the Lord in this situation. But I can create that environment for my kids in my home. And so that becomes a why. And do you see how we go deeper? Okay, so why? Why would that be important? Well, because deep down inside, and we go down and down and down and down until we start to get to some really deep feelings of desire of what we want. Comment in the comment section. Let me know. Do you know some of your whys right now? I'd love to hear what comes up for you about your whys, because I tell you, when I get down deep, 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 my heart's desire is honestly, whatever they learn academically, whatever they do or don't do, I want them to be people who love God, love others, and can enjoy doing both of those things, and that they are capable of ministering that out to other people. And honestly, if they could do that, I could care less about whether they learn their math facts. That's deep down inside. Now, I happen to think that knowing your math enables people to be able to do that well. And so it's part of it. And I do want them to get academics as secondary. But when I personally get down to that deep, deep level, it's because I want them to love God and love others well. And to know how to do that from a stable place that doesn't exude fear. And I can think that out, right? So, yeah, so some of you are commenting, I don't know my whys because I'm still undecided on what I'm going to do. That's fine. Do this process. Do this process, and it will help you get clear. Listen, some of you have special needs kids that need the services that other people provide. And doing a full homeschool thing may not be the best thing for you. And advocating for your child to get the best support possible may look like, I do need to look out there for other resources for my kid. That might be part of your why. Your why doesn't have to be my why. And if that's the case, then you can get really clear that like reaching out to other people really is an important piece of this. And so if you go through this training, I encourage you to just like, if that's where you get clear, like, yes, I'm going the school route. I'm clear that that my kid needs these resources. Okay, now you have the parameters of what you're going to do. And then you can ask the questions of how that we cover as well. How is that going to look? What things do I need to do in order to do that well? What problems are going to come up? What things need addressing? That's really good. Sarah says, I know my child best. Yeah, it's a great thing to be able to address specific needs when we know who our kids are. My main why is my 4th grade son. He needs a gentler approach to learning. Yeah. Yeah, when the option to learn is not something that you see your child thriving in, then it's time to consider something else, right? That makes sense. We've also gotten wrapped up in the life in the past couple of years with work, activities, losing our family bond. Yeah, I can relate to that. Homeschooling is going to be able to put us back together down the path we want. Absolutely. Hoping the process will help with your decisions. Absolutely. Good. Yeah. The ability to pass on your faith and worldview to your children. Right. Yes. Those are great examples of whys, all of them. So if you haven't done this process, I encourage you to do it. You can ask things like, why am I choosing this school option? What kinds of things do I want to see for them? What are my long range visions of them? Like I talked about, like, I want my kids to love God and love others. That's my most important thing. And then we say, okay, well, in order to do that well, what do they need to know? And that gets into the how. All right. So let's talk a little bit about how, okay? Because you can do a lot of things. You can do something a lot of different ways, and you can get the same result with a lot of different paths. So the how. Some of the questions that you want to ask around how are, what do you know about your child already? You like Sarah said, I know my child better than anybody. You do. So come on, like for every kid that you're trying to make a decision about, or that you're thinking about homeschooling, you need a different piece of paper that talks about that person. What do you know about them already? What are their strengths? What are their weaknesses? Do you know how they learn best? What interests do they have, or what different learning styles, what specific needs they have? All those kinds of things can go into helping you make a decision. And it will help you if you kind of go ahead and put those down on paper, because when you start looking at all the different options, they can be very distracting, and you can forget the child that you're taking care of by all the pretty colors and the lights and the oh, this company spent a lot of money on illustrations. And all of a sudden you're diving down a path that doesn't really support your kid because shiny pennies. So having that list in front of you of your kid and what their strengths are. You also probably know a lot more about what you want to do than you have admitted so far. And so I encourage you to jot down, what do I know already? Like for me, when we started home, and by the way, before I go any further, I am not affiliated with any homeschool program that I get money for. If you sign up for anything by me mentioning it on here, I get no monetary gains for any of that stuff. So I just want you to know that it actually is costing me money to put this training on. So my gift to you, I don't make a dime off of you signing up for any product. If I tell you something that I like and you go buy it on Amazon, I do not get an affiliate amount. Like, there's no monetary gain. So I just want you to know that I am doing my best to come from a place of no bias whatsoever. I have my preferences. I'm going to tell you what they are, but I'm not benefiting from you going and doing those things. Okay. I don't benefit. I want you to do what's good for your family. So that out of the way, when we decided to homeschool and I asked the question, what do I know already? I remembered how successful my family was when we did classical conversations. Now, that's not for everybody. I know it's not for everybody, but for us, it was a really good fit. And so I didn't have a lot of questions answered, but I knew that that was something that was like, oh, I know that I would want to do that again. I don't know how I'm going to pay for it, but that's what I wanted to do. So I wrote that down. This is something I know already. And if you can tick some of those things off, then it helps free your brain up to get creative about the pieces that you don't know. All right, so other questions that might help you with the how is to ask the question, what am I afraid of? Or what do I feel inadequate about? Do I have expectations about how this is going to go that need to be met that I don't think I can meet? For instance, always in our homeschooling before, my husband has always taught the math. I don't want to teach math. I know I don't want to teach math, right? And so the how means, like, I know that I don't want to teach the math. I know my husband has a different job now and is not going to be free to teach the math every day. And so I know I need a math that the kids can do that is largely independent of me. So I don't know what that is, but I know I need a math that they can do, right? That doesn't require me sitting there with them. Now, if I had 2 kids, I probably could, but I have 5 in school. And if you do the math, 5 kids needing math lessons every day, that leaves time for nothing else. So that's just not going to work, right? So you can ask, what am I afraid of? That'll give you information. Be honest. If you are afraid of something or you feel inadequate, this process will not serve you if you are not just brutally honest with what you're afraid of. It's driving the bus anyway. You might as well just go ahead and write it down. You might as well. It's a driving factor anyhow. All right, let me check in with some of your other comments here. Nushin says, some of what my whys involve wanting to have more influence on shaping my son's worldview. Yeah, allowing my oldest to thrive more in his gifted ways. Yes, instill a love of learning in my youngest and COVID. Absolutely. I know my why. I know our curriculum. Homeschooled for 6 years, really hoping to get organization out of this, not survival mode. Absolutely, that is coming. All right, it's just not today. We're going to get this one out of the way today. But good to know. Thanks, Rachel. All right. Yeah, so the why and the how. I'm spending a long time on this because this is the most important. All right. If you answer this and you get 75% ready for the school year, you're good to go. All right. If you answer these questions, 75% ready on everything else, you're good to go. All right. So in order to do the rest of this week well, there's a few other pieces that I want to pull together. Number one is I call these state the obvious questions. It's not up here, but things that sometimes I assume that people have talked about that maybe you haven't. So number one is, if you are married, are you and your spouse on the same page about this? And if you are not, I encourage you to stop this whole process and get on the same page, because this is a huge commitment, and it will not go well if you are not together on this. I'm just going to be that blunt and say it. If you're not together, it's not going to go well. So get on the same page with your spouse if you have one. All right. The second thing is I want you to remember to stay realistic to who you are. Okay. In this organization process and the scheduling process and figuring all of this out, remember the kind of person that you are. If you are a person that does not like to get up in the morning, do not sign your child up to be present for something at 7:30 in the morning. Don't do it. Remember who you are. It doesn't say, it's no judgment, no, like, but think about the skills that you have, the places that you shine. Do those things well and delegate the rest. The pieces that you are weak in, get somebody else to do that. That's why Classical Conversations works well for us, because I know that one of my weaknesses is that I'm too lackadaisical about school. And so if I sign up for something that has deadlines, that has me required to show up occasionally, I know that I end up being a better person. I plan homeschooling better if I'm talking to you about it, because I'll go over there and do it. I school my kids better when I'm schooling other people's kids, because I know, like, I will show up that way. So use who you really are. And then let's see, I'm just checking my notes here. Make sure I've covered all the basics. Those are the basic two. Be on the same page with your spouse. Stay realistic. Don't plan some schedule that is, just don't do it. You're going to throw it out anyway. Pick the time that you normally wake up anyway and start school then. If you want to change it maybe 30 minutes, but that's it. Don't go further than that, okay? So, all right. Next is the basic prep that you need to do in order to get ready for this, the rest of this challenge, okay? And this is going to jump into your homework, all right? So your whys, you're going to do that for homework, and your hows, you're going to ask some questions, and then I'm going to give you some basic prep things to do, okay? Number one, I want you to make some lists. I know, maybe you're not a list person. If you signed up for this challenge, do it anyway. It'll help your brain get organized, okay? So here's the lists I want you to make. I want you to make a list for 4 different things, okay? You need a list of things that you have not figured out yet. All right, so you can put a header at the top of the list for, I still haven't figured this out, right? You need a list for things that you need to order. Like, I know I'm going to purchase this online somewhere, and I want to remember that I need to order it. All right, that's your second list. Third list is stuff you need to do around town, like supplies purchase. Like, I know I need to purchase my homeschool supplies, or sometimes we go and get copies made of some things, or sometimes we'll take books and get them spiral bound instead of the binding on the side of the book. Some things like that help the kids have a more user-friendly experience. So those would be examples of things that you might need to do locally. And then, there's 5 lists. The fourth one is for each individual kid. You're going to need something for each individual kid as you're deciding what each person is doing. You're going to jot it down, and then what they actually need. For that way you can help make sure that you have everything you need for each child, right? And then the 5th list is your prayer list, okay? And I encourage you to keep this next to you all week long. And when you have something that you don't know how it's going to work, it goes on the prayer list. We don't say, I don't know how that's going to work, so we can't do it. If we're really clear that there's a path that this piece would actually help me, and I think this is a good fit for my family, but I don't know how to pay for it, or I don't know how to run that in my household, or I need somebody else to help me teach that, it goes on the prayer list. Okay. Yes, this piece would fit the puzzle. I just don't know how to where it goes or how to fit it in there right now. All right. Two quick stories about ways that God has met us in that way. One year, several years ago now, when all 7 of my kids were still in mostly elementary grades. I had one pre-K. He was 4. I think it was like 4 to 14, or it could have been 3 to 13. Anyway, they were all really little, and they all needed school. And I was overwhelmed. Even doing a multi-level grade program, I was using My Father's World at the time. I loved it. I loved the material. I just loved it so much. But with all the little kids that were in different stages of learning how to read, I couldn't figure out how to do it all. And I wanted to put my kids in public school that year. And for whatever reason, Brandon was just solidly like, he was an absolute no. And so we kind of came to this impasse of this, we weren't on the same page. And it was the Friday before school was supposed to start on Monday. We were really like, I don't know how to make this happen. I was really adamant that I could not homeschool on my own. And he was really adamant that they were not going to school. And so the two of us sat down in his office and prayed that God would open up a way for what we needed that year. And that afternoon, we still lived on the Bible school property. That afternoon, I ran down from my house down to the main campus to get something. And one of the recent graduates from Bible school was down there. And she approached me and said, "Hey, I was wondering, I feel like I've been praying and I think that the Lord has led me to ask you, would it be okay if I helped you with school this year in exchange for room and board at your house? I just wonder if God might be leading me to help you tutor your children. Is that okay?" I didn't have to think very long because A, we had just prayed for an answer, and B, yes, you can come live in my house and tutor my kids. And so that year, God provided a way for us to homeschool you could not have told me that would happen. No way. You could not have told me that would happen, but that's what she did. We cleaned out a room in our house. She lived in that room for the year, and she taught kindergarten and first grade to 2 of my kids, and that freed me up to be able to do the things with my older kids. The next year, we kind of because I had help that year, kind of got my head above water, and I could kind of look around at some of the other options. And I found Classical Conversations that year, and I was like, oh, this is a really good fit for our family, but I don't know how to pay for it. When you have 7 kids that you're trying to drop in the program, it adds up. If any of you, I think that year it was like $4,500 that it was going to cost us. I didn't have $4,500. We were frankly dirt poor at the time, like below dirt poor. So we knew that was the path to take, but we didn't have any of the money. And I didn't know how God was going to provide for that. But we signed up anyway. And we said, we're doing this. I don't know how this is going to work. And we committed to it. A week before the money was due, I got an unexpected inheritance check in the mail for $4,400. So it was $100 difference between the amount that I needed for school and what came in the mail. And of course, it was so close to the time that I absolutely knew that was the answer that God had given us. And of course, that check went directly to, this was his provision. So I just want to encourage you that money is nothing to God. And finding the help that you need is nothing to God. He can provide for whatever he calls you to. All right. So go ahead and put it on the list of, if you know that it's the thing, put it on the list for prayer and commit it to him. Remember, he's responsible for meeting our needs, right? All right, so that is the lists, right? Let me just check and see. Yes, God provides. Whitney says, when you say a list of what each child needs, are you talking about physical supplies, books, etc., or more abstract, like what method of learning needs, etc.? So this is how I set up my child list. Good question, Whitney. I set it up with the name of the kid, and then I just kind of brainstorm some of those like things that are on my mind. I don't try to like don't go crazy with it. Just jot down the things that you know about your kid already at the top, and just do kind of like a quick brain dump. Like one of my kids, I know he's gonna need a lot of structure. He's gonna need reminders. He's gonna need, he has a hard time focusing, but he can be consistent and he's cheerful with that. I also know that he doesn't do a lot with sitting down a lot or for long periods of time. And so he's going to need either some active things, or I'm going to need to incorporate some way of him taking lots of breaks. So I might jot those things down at the very top of just like, remember these pieces when you're looking for things. And then I would start with things like, what do I know already about him? Or what have I already figured out about what I want to do with him? Like, actually for him, I've already figured out the math that I need to do. I know the curriculum we're following, it's more about like, I need to figure out how he particularly is going to thrive using these tools, you know? And so that's something I might jot down. Don't worry about filling out all the lists more than just do a quick brain dump, okay? Whatever comes to mind, just dump it on there. All right, and we'll figure out, the list is just a place to brain dump when it comes. So if you want to put on there, oh, by the way, my kids need shoes, it's your list, put it on there. Like, it's a way to capture what's going on in your head, because this is a big, giant, multifaceted process that you can't hold all the pieces in your head at the same time and make wise decisions. You just can't. So the paper is merely a way to help your brain process the information in an organized way. All right. So make a list for your kids so you have a space. If something comes to mind, jot it down. If nothing comes to mind, leave it blank. It's okay. All right. Good. Okay. So that's the list. Second is legal information. Do you know what the state requirements are for your homeschool program? If you don't, a great place to go is hslda.org. They have links to all the different state requirements. So that's going to tell you what you need to do in order to get your declaration of intent or permission to homeschool kind of thing. In Georgia, it's super easy. You can actually, a lot of places you can type into the Google search engine declaration of intent and your state name, and it will pull up the website that you need to go to figure out what that is. For Georgia, it's an online submission. It's super easy. You could do it today. I actually did it last night, and it took me 5 minutes. 5 minutes to fill out the form, submit it, be done. Okay? So, but you're going to need to know what are the requirements in your state. All right? And I'm not going to figure that out for you. You're going to figure that out. You need to know how to start, what records you're required to keep. Are there specific subjects that you have to teach? And is there any testing that's required? So different states have different requirements. That's your research today. Figure it out, okay? Do this legal stuff. Know what you need to do, because that informs what you're teaching them this year and how you're doing it and what you need to set aside time for, all right? That seems obvious. Third is location. Now, this doesn't have to be the final spot where all of your homeschool is going to live, but I encourage you to pick a location in your house where you're going to gather this stuff. Okay? It's a whole lot easier to organize things once you've pulled it all together. So pick a space today. It doesn't have to be cute. Currently, all of my stuff is in the entryway to my house. Is that the ideal space? Nope. It's just where I put it. And I happen to have a bookcase there. So, and I've got some crates. All right. So a location of where to put it. It can be the dining room table and you're just going to decide to eat in the living room the whole time. Like, that's fine. It's just a staging place when I'm talking about location right now. Figure it out. The things that you already have, go ahead and stick them over there. All right. It'll make it easier to organize it later. And then leverage. I want to talk about this, and this is the last thing before we jump onto Q&A. Any other questions that you have for today? But I want to talk about how you can leverage other people's knowledge to get the information that you need for your kids. Okay, there are a lot of homeschool forums out there. There's a lot of experience out there, and you can either use it to get what you need, or you can get it like a fire hydrant and feel overwhelmed and it will shut you right down. Okay, so I want to give you a couple of pointers for how to use the knowledge and experience of others to help you in this process rather than cause overwhelm. All right, there's a couple of different ways. Number one is with social media. So if you're part of a homeschool group and you want to know how to do stuff, I encourage you, after you've done these why and hows, don't ask any questions on social media before you've done your why and hows. Okay? Once you've done this, then use the social media platforms this way. If you're going to ask a question in a group and you want good answers, here's how to do it. People are happy to help you, but you're going to have to help them give you good answers, okay? So the first thing you need is you state what you need. I need a recommendation for a math program. I am wanting a program that's an all-in-one package. I have a need for a good hands-on science activity kind of thing. Whatever the need is, okay? So you state the need, get really clear. The second piece of information to put in that post is, I already know blank. So I need a good math program. I already know it needs to be something they can do without me. This tells all of those experienced homeschoolers what your limitations are, and they will, without even realizing that they're doing it, start to filter out curriculum that they've already gone through. They're like, okay, well, that won't work and that won't work. All right, so state what you need. I already know, or I've already tried. Like, I need a math program. I've already tried Math UC and Right Start Math. The time that it takes me to spend with that, you know, like whatever. Or I need a writing program for my second grader, and I already know that it needs to be heavy on active kinesthetic, but I've already tried IEW's writing program for that age, and it's too parent intensive. Okay, so what you've already tried, and then you might want, if you know specifically about how your child learns. My child learns best by actually hands-on. My child learns best by auditory, meaning like they memorize things easily. If you have a kid that memorizes things easily, often it's a high auditory processing child. If your child, or maybe they learn best by video. Maybe they learn best by watching something and taking notes or something like that. So if you already know those pieces of information, or if your child has a special needs, like they're ADD or they're dyslexic, or if you already know some of those pieces, go ahead and throw that in the post. There's so much stuff out there, but I see all the time people posting things like, hey, everybody give me your recommendations for curriculum that you love. Y'all, there's literally like 300,000 million different types of curriculum. And knowing the name of them is not going to help you whittle it down. You end up with this huge pile that now you still have to evaluate all these different pieces that you've never experienced before. That's a lot of work that you don't have to do. You can use the fact that everybody else has already done that work for your benefit, okay? So that's how to ask good questions on social media forums. Second, don't worry about, like, just scroll past the judgy posts. They're not for you, all right? The other thing is, if you go to some sort of convention, there are a few happening here and there. So if you go, whether it's an online convention or an actual in-person convention where people have booths and you can shop around, if you can go with these lists already done, and this list already, the list for your kids already done, you've already done your plan of what you need to purchase, or even like what I need to figure out, and you have like, I need to figure out a writing program. It will help you sort of stifle that overwhelm piece that comes from walking into a convention hall and having hundreds of booths all around, or even going onto an online platform. Sometimes you have online conventions, and trying to figure out where to go and all the different curriculum to go. So that would be my recommendation, is have this stuff done before you go curriculum searching, okay? And leverage the information that other people need. Let's see, what about a vague specific need, like I need something that will take less than 3 hours a day? Does that leave too open to the fire hydrant? I would be more specific in the sense of, if you're talking about like 3 hours a day for everything to get done, or 3 hours a day for what? Like, what are you hoping to accomplish in the 3 hours? Be a little more like, I want something for everything, or I need math and language arts to take less than 3 hours a day. The other piece of information that this makes me think of is a lot of the curriculum out there that you look at. If you look at a full, like, there's kind of 3 different types of things. There's full package, like you can go to a Becca or Bob Jones University, or these like full, and you can get their individual pieces, or you can order like, this is 3rd grade, and you can get everything you need, the math and the language arts and the science and the history, and like you can get the whole thing in one big giant package, and it'll all come together. A lot of programs that are out there are full packages, but you have to add a math and a language arts, because those are pieces that people are on different levels with. The reason why they've done that is to help homeschoolers, because for science and history and music and art and Bible and all of those kinds, and social studies, those kinds of subjects, you can combine those for a variety age of children, multiple ages. But math and language arts is something that it's a lot more complicated to combine, and so a lot of people keep those separate. So you just need to know that there's the full package companies, there's companies that do a full package, but you add a math and language arts, and they're not trying to trick you. That's actually a way to help you tailor it to your child. And then of course there's thousands of companies that like you just pull from this, that, and the other, and you put your own thing together, okay? So when you start looking around, know that that's kind of the 3 ways, and make sure that you understand which of those 3 things is the thing that you're looking at. All right. The final thing I'll say about that is, if this is brand new to you, I encourage you to look for the people around you that are doing what you want to do successfully? Do they have the results that you want? You will be more successful as a beginner if you just find another homeschooler around you that is doing what you like, that has results with their kids, using something, and just latch on to them. Start with what they're doing. All right? You don't have to stay with it forever. But the support around how to do it will take you further in your first year than going out and trying to find pieces all by yourself and then trying to do it without support. Okay? So I strongly encourage you, if you have to choose between figure out all your curriculum on your own and do the perfect thing for your kid, or be doing the thing that somebody near you is doing, at least to get started, I'd pick do what somebody else is doing. All right. It just makes it easier to ask questions, and there's the camaraderie, and then after you've been in it and you learn, like, it's a learning process. After you learn a few things, it'll be easier. Okay, so that's the main training. I want to do our giveaways. So give me just a second. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 10, 11, 12. Okay, so I see 12 people on and currently. So my favorite read aloud that I'm giving away 2 copies of today is this book called My Side of the Mountain. If you've ever read this book, it's about a little boy, well, young teenage boy who decides to go live in the woods for a year. It's a lovely little imaginary story if your kids like kind of adventure stories. It's got some interesting information. It'll teach them a little bit about nature, but it's a really charming book if you've never read it. It's my absolute #1 favorite for a read aloud story for my kids. I have 2 copies that I'm going to give away to people on the live right now. So hold on just a second. And I'm going to pull 2 numbers. I promise I do have a system, random system for how to do this. There it is. Give me just a second. Okay. So this is taking a minute. I don't have somebody else pulling my numbers for me, but I wanted it to be random, so. Okay. Okay, so our winners for the drawing for the book is Tina Lunsford and Whitney Schlender. Tina Lunsford and Whitney Schlender. All right. So if you are still on, comment in the feed that that you're still on, so that I know that I chose somebody that actually is still on the call. And then private message me your address so that I can mail you a copy of this book. All right. Tina Lunsford and Whitney Schlender. All right. That's fun. Yay, good job. All right, so My Side of the Mountain, if you don't have this, it's not very expensive on Amazon. It's a great little thing. And so that's the training. I will stay on and do Q&A for a little while right now. So feel free to ask whatever you would like, or stay on for that if you would like. All right. Are either of you still on, Whitney or Tina? Because if you aren't, yay, Whitney. Cool. Okay. So you've never read that one. That's awesome. Oh, I think you will love it. Yeah. Cool. All right, Nushin asked a question. She says, what about newly specific need for how to transition from screen time, video games, summer free for all to school mode with the transition from public school to homeschool? That is a great question. Okay, so I have a couple of tricks for that. All right, number one, and we'll get into this more on, I have a scheduling bonus that I'm going to be doing on Thursday, and this will really help you, that particular piece. What I usually do, there's a couple of different pieces that I do, is I figure out the structure of what our day is going to look like, and I start the structure a week before I start their academics. So for instance, and we'll talk a little bit about how this works later too, but for instance, in order for our family to homeschool well, we have to have a little bit more support around, everybody has to kind of pitch in and do more housekeeping and chores around the house in order to, because I have to take away my time from what I'm doing in the house to focus on school, right? So a lot of these things in the house become a lot more teamwork. And as a result, that means that the kids, excuse me, have responsibilities that they need to do in order to help the family. And so I'll figure out what all those structural pieces are before we get started and do those starting a week before. So we'll get up on time, we'll do our chores, and then the time that they would normally do school will be still free time that they can do something else for that week. And sometimes chores take a little bit longer that week because usually I end up training them to do their chores well. I use that as a refresher opportunity to, if I'm teaching them, if they're doing their own laundry or they're doing dishes or cleaning bathrooms or whatever, I use that week as a training time for how to do those responsibilities around the house well. So a week of the structure before school, and then once you get into school, I start the subjects, but my first 2 weeks of school, I don't expect them to really be able to knock out everything. I expect them to fuss, pick fights, argue, whine, all of it. Like, it's just part of the transition. And so in my mind, I give it 2 weeks. Now, that doesn't mean that I just sit around like, oh, it's okay for you to treat me like dirt all the time. But I do give a lot of space for people to feel grouchy and have trouble getting up in the morning and things like that. And I usually just mentally prepare for 2 weeks of difficulty. It's the same thing when we any new thing that I decide that our family's going to do, whether it's school or, okay, you have to have a new responsibility to do this, that, or the other. It usually takes a couple of weeks of consistency before they realize that, okay, this is we're stuck. We're doing this. So, all right. I haven't seen Tina post. So I am assuming she's not on, so I'm going to pick a different person. Hold on. Hold on to your hats. Here we go. All right. It's going to be 1, 2, 3, 4. Melissa Randall, are you still on? Oh, Tina, you're still here. Okay, good. Thanks for letting me know. There she is. I got it. Okay. I just didn't want to give it to somebody who wasn't there. Yeah, definitely. Sorry, Melissa. We'll give the book to Tina, and the rest of you will still be eligible for drawings for later this week. Yeah, just get put your for anybody who wins this year, just private message me your address, okay? And I'll get you your prize. Yay! Okay. Any other questions about gearing up for prep this week? I know we haven't talked about organization. We're going to get to it. Oh, here's your homework. I'll put that up. This is like really a little bit more straightforward. Here, these are your things. All right. Any other questions I can answer today about your whys or how to kind of figure stuff out? I'm happy to stay on just a little bit longer if you have other questions. Tomorrow we're going to cover creating a space for your stuff and how to organize that in your house. That's tomorrow's session. We're gonna start working on that. So, and how to figure out little kids, you know, and what to do with them when they aren't being schooled. Any other questions, comments, concerns? I'm going to jot down that Tina and Whitney. Anything? This is your chance. This one is probably the most mental stuff. The rest of a lot of the rest of the trainings will be very, very practical. So I'm not seeing any questions. Let's see. Oh, there you are. Do you start reducing summer-like activities, screen time, video games, loafing in that week prep time? Yeah, we did actually. We actually changed our requirements have been very lenient. So there may have been weeks this summer that our children have logged more than 50 hours on their device, which is not normal for what we would allow, but with all the stuff going on where you can't go and do a lot of things, we've been really lax. And so we are starting to cut that down this week. Instead of allowing them to have the equivalent of 10 hours a day, 5 days a week, although I guess it's spread over 7, but it's still an enormous amount. And all of you can be shocked, and you can just take, you know, courage that if your kids are playing less than that, you're not the worst one out there. Yeah, so yesterday, I think Brandon cut it down to 5 hours a day, which probably sounds really enormous to a lot of people. But that's where we're at just because of COVID and things like that. And the time adds up. I mean, you watch 2 movies and that's almost 4 hours of screen time. So yeah, so this week they've got 5 hours, and we will kind of whittle it down. The other thing, I can give you this resource too, because I've shown people this before. If you can make a list that looks like this. If you want a copy of this, just screenshot maybe. Let's see if I can move my laptop over so you can kind of see this list. I'll try to be really still. I could put a picture in the Facebook group, but basically what this is that when we take them off of screens, a lot of times they have a hard time figuring out what else to do with their lives, because they just, like, their brains aren't paying attention. Like they haven't been thinking about that, and all they've been thinking about is video games. So I like to give them ideas of what they can do, a combination of work and play. So there's things like you could build with blocks or create a Playmobil world. Like, I remind them of all the toys that we have in the house. I remind them, and I'll drop a file in the group to support that. Let me jot that down because I've got like a whole long list of you could do all these things. Like these are so many different ideas. Some of them you probably won't want to do just because it's going to be more work for you. But there is a legitimate need of, I don't know what else to do with myself. That is a legit issue when we start cutting back. So I do that to make sure that they have support before while in the process. You want to replace, not just take away, right? All right, let me jot down that you need that file. If you aren't in my Moms in Control group, the file is in there. If you don't want to wait for me to put it in this group later, you can join that one, Moms in Control. And I think it's under, it's in one of the units. If you look in the units, I think it's in the kids unit. I think there's a kids unit and it's under there. Let's see. Who else? Making and maintaining friendships. That seems to be a big concern for my teens. Yes, I would agree with that. And I don't know what is up with the whole, ever since COVID and we've had to step back. Now, every time there's some activity or something, my kids don't want to go. I don't know what that's all about, but it's just this interesting phenomenon that has happened that I find myself almost having to shove them out the door. Yeah, so that can go on your list of, like when you make your list for your, like each child and what they need and what comes up, that can be one of your pieces. Like, hey, you know what? We need to prioritize friends. We need to prioritize relationships. And that might help inform you of what direction to take. Like maybe you look around for a co-op situation, or maybe what it informs is like, I know that what would actually be good is if me and another mom got together and we swap subjects and one of us teach math and the other one teach language arts, and we just get together, 2 or 3 times a week and do it together because my kids need friends, that kind of thing. I did go, I'll be honest with you, I did go from letting my kids kind of decide whether or not they wanted to go to stuff to, no, you have to go. And they're giving me they're balking about it. And I don't think them staying home is healthy right now. They need the connection with other people. And that's just part of being a parent, and saying, okay, I know you're 16 and you ought to, ordinarily I might not put you in the position of being told that you have to go play with friends, because ordinarily you're pretty good at taking opportunities that come up for that. But where there's very limited opportunities, I'm definitely gonna prioritize it. And we did start looking for ways to spend time with other people, even though COVID, because their mental and emotional health was deteriorating, and that's not going to keep their body healthy. So that's just how we decide. Like we made that decision that that I was watching my kids turn into little depression issues. Like I didn't want that to be that's important to me. So yeah, so that's kind of part of what we do. Yeah, the struggle is real to get them out of the house, right? Oh man. Yeah, we've also prioritized serving other people. That's another way to build relationships, and it's actually a tricky way to help them feel valued. If you can find different service opportunities that your kids can be a part of, that can be a huge boost to them. Even if it's just hey, we're going to go to this activity, and part of our time at the activity is we're going to stay until the end and help clean up, even if it's just that. And then praise them and thank them for helping clean up the trash or put the dishes away or whatever. It will make them feel valued and they have purpose. And when we have value and purpose, we feel better. We enjoy living life better when we all do. That's God put that in us. We have a desire to have value and purpose and connection with other people. And so when those things are happening, we have the highest possibility of really being happy. So good question. Anybody else? Before you can like go off and do your lists and get your homework done, feel free to post in the chat if you have any, like if you get your stuff done. I'd love to celebrate with you, and that'd be fun. Let's cheer each other on. All right, I know there's like a 30-second time delay, so I'm just checking to see if there's any other questions before we jump off. I will drop the list. It doesn't look like this, but it is a list, and I'll drop that in the feed. And this is your homework for today. If you get bogged down in this and you get stuck, throw stuff in the comments and tag me. All right, tag me. That'll help me find it, or in the discussion feed, and I'll do my best to answer as many questions as I can that come up. Yeah, it's called Moms in Control Facebook group. So if you just search for Moms in Control, you should find it, and it's got the logo on it has like the Moms in Control words on the side, and there's like 3 pictures of moms doing different things. So yeah, so that could help you figure out where that is. Good question. Yeah. All right, friends, I'm so excited. Thank you so much for coming today. I'm so excited that you joined me. I look forward to it tomorrow. Keep posting in the discussion feed. Let me know how I can help you. Again, my desire is just to serve you this week. So yeah, and if you know that you're going to have organizational questions or something comes up, go ahead and drop it in there. I am making kind of a list of things that people have said they want help with, and so I can tackle it on that day. So please do reach out and let me know. Otherwise, have a great day and getting your homeschool stuff together, and I will see you tomorrow. All right? Bye-bye. Take care. You guys are awesome.